Hello, I'm Becky Phelps. Tonight's Ask 9 is on the road at the Kalona Historical Village, where we are getting an inside look at a very special exhibit celebrating America's 250th anniversary at a very local level here in Kalona. We're going to meet Mike Huston, a local curator who's helped put this exhibit together. Let's take a look. What do we have over here?
This is probably the easiest thing for me to talk about because a lot of these items are my own. We've got a lot of firearms here. They're kind of in chronological order. So we've got a Sharps carbine that's up there at the top. You know, that would have been used in the Civil War. Then it was converted to shoot a metal cartridge during like the Indian Wars. The two muskets here are mine. So this is a Confederate Enfield. So the British made these Enfield rifled muskets and they sold them to both sides, to Union and Confederate troops. This one has Confederate markings on it, so it was imported. They would have blockade runners, so they would, blow through the federal blockade to bring these weapons into the United States, and then it was captured. Now, if you look closely up here, there's some initials. There's a DAS that was initially carved into the musket, and then on top of that is carved UIU 19. And this was brought back by some students from Upper Iowa University that were called the University Recruits, and they all enlisted in the Civil War together. So that's an actual, bring back Confederate imported, musket. And then this is a Springfield that was, and all the accoutrements, belong to the same guy. I've really been into collecting Civil War items for, 6, 7 years. That's really about it. This is my collection here, so I'm pretty proud of these. So these are all Washington County, Iowa soldiers. So these are guys who served in the Civil War, who were living in Washington County at the time when they enlisted. So the images that you see here in the plastic cases or the acrylic cases, these are what we call carte de visites, or CDV images for short. So the Civil War was the first war where they had photography. So it was a big deal for guys when they're leaving for the war, when they come back home, to get their picture taken. Early on, they would get their picture taken like in a tintype. So that's one of one. So whenever you would sit down to have your picture taken, you'd get one picture taken at a time. Then towards the middle part of the war, like 1863, then these carte de visites became more popular because you could make a dozen of them at a time. And then guys traded them with each other almost like baseball cards. So they would, inscribe it to their friend or, autograph it. And then they collected them a lot of times in photo albums, which you can see, here. So I've got in my collection about 150 images of Washington County guys, but there was 1,500 who served. So, I really only have 10%, represented, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, they're from the 1860s, so.
Where are you finding these?
I've been pretty fortunate that I've got a couple guys that I've become good friends with who had big collections, and they don't like to sell, but they like to trade. So I find out, again, it's kind of like trading baseball cards. I find out what they're interested in, and then I try and track down images that they like, and I trade with them. So a lot of them I've acquired through, from private collectors, through trading or buying, eBay, other online auctions. I just bought a group of 108 letters that were written by a local soldier back home to his sweetheart, who eventually became his wife. I bought those here a few weeks ago, and they popped up on eBay. So, yeah, it's amazing what's out there.
You would have never guessed.
No.
That something local especially is just sitting out there on eBay.
Yeah, and that's what I focus on is Washington County. And this entire exhibit, I mean, whether it's the Civil War stuff that you see here, all the way through modern day, I mean, we're really trying to focus on telling the local story.
Amazing. Okay, walk us through some more.
Yeah, so just more images here. Again, all Washington County guys. The drum that you see up above, it's not a Civil War drum, but it's from that era. It actually belonged to a guy who was a drummer in the Civil War. He moved out west to Los Angeles and joined a fife and drum corps, and then this is the drum that he played. And I got some pictures of GAR guys. So the Grand Army of the Republic was a fraternal group for Union veterans after the war. So this is a picture of a lot of these same soldiers you see here, when they were young and they were serving. Now you see them, when they're older in the GAR group.
Tell me about this flag down here.
Yeah, so a lot of times they would have parades, and the GAR guys, the Civil War veterans, they would march in those parades. So this is a flag that belonged to Levi Coughlin. He was a member of Company C of the 19th Iowa. Pretty cool story about him. I mean, he was captured, spent time as a POW, and escaped from a Confederate POW camp, and then reunited with federal troops. So pretty cool story. Now I don't know. This was probably used in a parade, but it might have also been used, at the time, like as a memorial at the time of his funeral too.
Okay, so what are we about to see in this room?
Oh man, there's a little bit of everything in here. So we talked a lot about the Civil War. We've got Civil War on the left. We've got Civil War on the right. We can maybe talk about this one. So this mannequin here is portraying William Jeffrey. One thing I would tell folks that are coming here to visit, take time, because we took time to do the interpretation. So we've got everybody labeled. It's not just a mannequin. Like, this is portraying a real person, and the interpretation tells the story. But William Jeffrey was the color guard for the 19th Iowa Infantry. The flag that you see behind us is an exact replica of the 19th Iowa's flag. KCRG actually did a story on the flag when it was being made. My friend Brandon Jolly, he's a veteran. He hand sewed that flag, and so it's an exact replica of the one that this guy carried. That's a picture of the Battle of Prairie Grove, which is the reenactment that I talked about earlier. Every single member of their color guard was a casualty that day. Now, not necessarily killed, but killed or wounded. And William Jeffrey was one of those guys. So again, a Washington County guy. This flag, the original flag, was hand sewn by female students at the college in Washington. So it all has, a local tie to it. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, my son is a big World War II guy. So we tried to arrange things here in the museum kind of by war period and then also by branch of service. So what you see here is World War II and World War II Air Corps. We also have a case out front where we're trying to kind of highlight or share information about soldiers who died in action, who were killed in action. And this is an example of one of those here. This mannequin is portraying Carl Adams, who was killed in action during World War II. He was in the Air Corps. This is actually his flight suit, his dog tag, his cap, one of his flight scarves. And then there's a picture of him there with this plane. And then we have a few more of Carl's items that are out front as well. Marion Turnipseed, he was our oldest and last living World War II veteran. Unfortunately, he passed away back in the fall, so we've lost all of our World War II guys. But he was a really good friend of my son and I. And then this is an awesome flight jacket. So the cool thing about this A2 bomber jacket is this is the plane that they were on. It's called Lassie Come Home. So the story about Lassie Come Home is originally this airplane was called Black Magic. Well, when they got the airplane, it was painted Black Magic. The pilot saw it. He said, "I'm not flying an airplane that's called Black Magic," and it had a black cat. So what they did was they kind of repainted the nose art, and they turned the black cat into a little dog, and then they called it Lassie Come Home. So just kind of a neat story about, local veteran. This is a lot of my reenacting gear. So all of the...
This is your gear?
Yeah, this is the reenacting gear that I would wear, which is, made as close to the original stuff as possible. So this is just showing, Civil War camp. The soldier that is portrayed here, it's actually portraying an ancestor of mine on Sherman's March to the Sea. So you can see he's got a blanket roll, and that was something that these guys did. They were marching 10, 15 more miles a day. So they ditched a lot of their gear, and they just took it and rolled it up into their blanket and slung it over their shoulder. So that's showing what most guys would look like on Sherman's March to the Sea. And then a lot of the gear that they would carry. So, and then this is a shelter half or a pup tent. Two guys, each guy would have one half, and then two guys would share this tent together. So they would take each of their halves and put them together and set up their tent. And the neat thing about doing living histories like that is you can appreciate maybe how good or bad the food was, or how good or bad their gear was, and just kind of put yourself in their shoes for a little while. All right, so we've got a variety of other cases up here as well. And again, they're kind of arranged by war period, so we tried to keep, excuse me, tried to keep like World War I stuff in a case, World War II stuff in a case. So we can start here. I'll say like up top as an example. I mentioned earlier my son's really into World War II, very knowledgeable. So most normal people, and I would consider myself normal, but we're a little different in our interest. But most normal people just say these are just canteens, right? But they're not. They're all manufactured in a different way. They were made at a different time period. So he's done a nice job of putting the interpretation here and telling you about them. So that first canteen, that's a seamless canteen. Those are basically blown or spun almost like glass. So you can see it doesn't have any seams on it. Those are pretty rare. And then you've just kind of got your standard canteen. Then you've got an enamel canteen.
This one has a duck on it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the story is on that one. But guys did that a lot.
Definitely unique.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, you get bored, you find ways to kill some time. You carve something in there. Maybe it's your name, maybe it's your initials, maybe it's your girlfriend, whatever it is. But guys found ways to kill time. There's some items here that are items from Germany and from Japan. And we're not trying to highlight those folks by any means, from World War II, because obviously the Nazi German regime was a terrible thing. But guys brought back souvenirs and they brought back relics. And so that's what we're really trying to just demonstrate here is, these are a lot of items that soldiers brought back, from their service, and it kind of just helps tell that story. You can see the newspaper article here about Verl Davison. So Verl was a local soldier. He was in the 1st Infantry Division. If you look closely at his helmet, you'll see that it's damaged. It was damaged from a piece of shrapnel.
It's a pretty big hole.
It is. And Verl was lucky enough to escape without a scratch. But,
wow.
Again, I talked about, we want to be able to tell that story, and we want to be able to have, solid provenance. We go back to, there's a newspaper article here that was published in the Wilmot Advance, which is my hometown. And Verl wrote home telling his parents about kind of what was going on. But then he also, talked about a souvenir. He said, well, there's one souvenir I'm going to bring home that I haven't told you about yet, and it's my helmet, and it has this damage. And then down below that is Carl Adams. We talked about Carl earlier. That was a mannequin that we had out in the quilt room that had his dog tag and his flight suit and things. So these are more of his items. We've even got, this is some childhood clothing. Now we need to get it on probably a better mannequin, but this is his childhood outfit, and you can see it's really worn. And we talk a lot about these World War II veterans and the greatest generation, and a lot of it is because of this. They grew up during the Great Depression. They grew up during really tough times, really difficult times, and it made them good soldiers. It made them pretty awesome Americans. So if we don't tell their story, who's going to? And I think it's just important for everyone to understand, freedom's not free. It came with a ton of sacrifice, and it's probably, hopefully, we don't have to make tremendous sacrifice in the future, but we might, and if we can learn about this history, hopefully we don't repeat it again.
We met one local veteran willing to share his story. He's featured in one of these display cases alongside his daughter.
My name is Ronald L. Romine. I served 2 years active and 4 years active reserve and 2 years inactive reserve. I was drafted in 1961. And when you're drafted, you're pulled out from all your family, friends, and your whole area. People don't realize. You join a whole different group of people. And it's kind of mind-boggling at first. But you adjust to it, and you realize that all this group around you also going through the same thing. So it's kind of interesting. You learn a lot, who to be with, who not to be with, who to play cards with, who not to play cards with, who to go out drinking beer with, and who not to go out drinking beer with. But that's in all cases for all individuals.
Tell me about your daughter.
She passed away about 5 years ago.
What was her name?
Regan Romine. Petty officer, first class, I believe. She joined the Navy right out of high school. Spent 20 years. Scotland, Sicily, Hawaii, Antigua, Florida, Washington, D.C. We followed her all over the country and supported her. And she ended up being air crew, it's called. She was attached to this airplane. And anyway, any place this airplane went, that's where she was, on the plane. This was her display. These coins are called honor coins, and they're very desired in the military. If you do a good job, the officer comes out and shakes your hand, and then he turns it over and drops a coin in if you've done a good job. And she has a lot of coins. That's a lot of coins for a young person. You can write into the St. Louis and ask for your medals, and she got those for me. They sent them to me. But she never got hers. She would have had probably 26 of them, maybe 30.
What does it mean to you to see your family displayed here?
I feel quite proud. She served well, did a good job, excellent job. So it feels very good.
I want to ask
Yep.
what it means to you to be able to put on this local display in honor of America's 250th.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a privilege to do it. It's also a big responsibility. It's just really important that we tell the story correctly, and that we honor these people. I mean, in 250 years, there's been a tremendous amount of sacrifice. So I just think it's important that we do these men and women justice.
The exhibit is open all year long. You can come to visit the Kalona Historical Village Mondays through Saturdays, and we'll have the hours posted on our website under this story. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's Ask 9. Have a great evening.